He was stepping out of his luxury car when he noticed her, sitting quietly on the cracked pavement with a plastic bowl trembling in her lap. One glance, and the world James Patel had carefully constructed came crashing to a halt. Because the woman begging on the side of that dusty street wasn't a stranger. She was the one who had once raised him like her own son. James had just signed a landmark contract, a deal worth billions of rupees, and was en route to a grand celebration at one of Mumbai's most opulent five-star hotels. Dressed immaculately in a custom-tailored navy suit, his wristwatch gleaming under the streetlights, his phone buzzing with congratulatory messages from investors, colleagues, and old acquaintances, James was, by every visible measure, living the life people envied. But fate, as it often does, had other plans for him that night. As the sleek black Bentley slowed to a stop at a congested traffic light near one of the city's oldest marketplaces, James casually glanced out the tinted window. His eyes caught a figure, a woman, frail and bent, wrapped in a tattered shawl that barely shielded her from the cooling evening breeze. She sat with her head bowed, hands trembling slightly as she clutched the bowl, waiting for coins that seldom came. Something in his chest twisted painfully. He leaned forward, pressing his palm against the glass for a clearer look, and then he saw her face. Time had etched deep lines into her skin, and the sun had weathered her features, but he would have recognized her anywhere. "Nanny," he whispered hoarsely, his voice cracking. Before the driver could respond, James flung open the car door and darted into the street, oblivious to the honking horns, the flashing cameras, and the curious stares. Kneeling before her, he found himself face to face with a memory wrapped in heartbreak. Her eyes lifted to meet his, confusion flickering across their weary depths. And then, recognition bloomed. "Jamie," she breathed, her voice quivering. "My Jamie." He felt something break inside him. "What happened to you?" he asked, barely able to get the words out. His throat ached with grief. Tears filled her sunken eyes. "Life happened," she murmured. "After your family moved abroad, there was no one left. I lost my job. The landlord evicted me. I tried, Jamie. I tried so hard. The noise of the street, the curious crowd, even the flashing cameras, all of it faded into a distant blur. All James could hear was her broken voice. And without hesitation, he wrapped his arms around her and wept. Not the silent, composed tears of a successful man, but the raw, shuddering sobs of a boy who had just found the person who once made the world safe for him. People around them gasped, took photos, whispered, but no one dared interrupt. They knew instinctively, this was no ordinary reunion. This was love rediscovered after years of loss. "I looked for you," James choked out. "When I came back to India, I asked around. Nobody knew where you had gone." She smiled sadly, brushing his tear-streaked cheek with trembling fingers. "People forget those who help them once they rise," she said gently. "But I never blamed anyone. I only hoped you were living well. And now look at you." James pulled off his expensive jacket and draped it over her fragile shoulders. "You should never have ended up like this," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "You raised me when my parents were too busy chasing success. You told me bedtime stories. You fed me when I wouldn't eat. You sang me to sleep. You were my little sunbeam," she whispered back, tears slipping down her cheeks. "I never had children of my own, but I had you." A nearby vendor, seeing the scene unfold, timidly approached and offered a bottle of water. James accepted it gratefully, twisting off the cap and helping her drink. Then he turned sharply to his driver. "We're going home," he commanded, his voice brooking no argument. "She's coming with me." "But sir, the event." "Cancel it," James said without looking away from her. "Tell them something came up. Something far more important." As he gently helped her to her feet, supporting her with both arms, he leaned close and whispered, "From this moment on, you will never beg again. You will never be cold or hungry again." She shook her head weakly. "I don't want pity, Jamie," she said. "This isn't pity," he said, leading her carefully to the car. "This is gratitude." The car ride back to his estate was steeped in silence, save for the occasional hiccup of emotion that neither could fully suppress. James sat close beside her, watching her clutch his jacket as though it were a lifeline. The lights of Mumbai blurred past, but in his heart, time had slowed to a crawl. "Do you remember," he asked softly, breaking the silence, "how you used to sneak me sweets before dinner?" She chuckled hoarsely. "And how your mother would scold me when she found out." James laughed, a laugh tinged with tears, and for the first time in years, the weight on his chest felt lighter. When they arrived at his mansion, an imposing structure of white stone and glass, the staff, used to James's occasional eccentricities, froze in surprise. Their wealthy, powerful employer was helping a frail beggar woman out of his car with a tenderness none of them had ever seen before. Prepare the grand suite on the top floor, James instructed his house manager, his tone brooking no argument. And call the best doctor in the city immediately. The staff scattered into action. That night, James sat beside her as the doctor conducted a full examination. Malnutrition, dehydration, weak bones, but nothing irreversible. Nothing that time, nutrition, and unconditional love couldn't heal. She'll recover fully, the doctor assured him. She will have everything she needs, James replied, never once taking his eyes off her. Later, when the house was quiet and the moon hung like a sentinel over the city, James brought her a tray with soup he had personally prepared. She struggled to sit up, but he gently urged her back. Let me, he said, spooning the broth to her lips. You shouldn't be doing this, she whispered, ashamed. I should have done it years ago, he murmured back. She looked at him, wonder filling her tired eyes. Why, James? Why now? He smiled, and the boy she had once known shone through the man he had become. Because you never abandoned me, he said. You loved me before I had anything to offer. Now, let me hold you as you once held me. Tears streamed down her face, but she didn't turn away. She let him stay by her side all night, his hand gently wrapped around hers. Weeks turned into months. Under James's devoted care, she grew stronger. She moved freely around the mansion, and her laughter, soft, musical, and unmistakable, became the house's new heartbeat. James didn't just take care of her physical needs. He rebuilt memories with her. Every night, he shared dinner with her, listened to her old stories, even brought her sweets and scolded her playfully when she sneaked them past the cook. Inevitably, the media caught wind of the story. Billionaire reunites with childhood nanny, brings her home from the streets splashed across headlines. The world praised his compassion. James didn't care. One golden evening, they sat together on a garden bench, sipping warm chai. I want to do something, he said, watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks. What is it, Jamie? She asked. I want to build a shelter. For women forgotten by the world. Warm beds, hot meals, books, laughter, dignity. Tears welled up again in her eyes. And, he added softly, I want to name it after you. Alma's house. Because when I was small and couldn't pronounce Nanny, that's what I called you. She laughed, a true, bright laugh, and wiped a tear from her wrinkled cheek. You remember that? I remember everything, he said. And now, the world will remember you too. 3 months later, Alma's house opened its doors. She sat in the front row, regal in a new silk sari James had chosen for her himself. Beside her, he delivered a speech that left no dry eyes in the audience. I built companies with strategy, James said, his voice strong, but I built myself with her love. The audience rose to their feet, clapping. Cameras flashed. But in that moment, the only thing James cared about was the radiant smile lighting up her face, the smile of someone who had loved selflessly and finally received that love back 1,000-fold. Because in the end, true wealth isn't measured by bank accounts or skyscrapers. It's measured in the hands that once held you, and the hearts you never forget to hold in return.